Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Creation Myths. We are doing a quick, kind of off the cuff live show tonight. So, as usual, chat, when we're doing the live stuff, please let me know if the sound and the video is okay. I have it open and everything looks okay on my end, but if your experience differs, please let me know so that I can address any technical difficulties we may have. So, for those of you watching this live and for those of you watching this after the fact, thank you for being here. Welcome back. Tonight, we are going to do a quick look at some recent content from my friends at Discovery Institute. And this is all fallout from my recent video. So, let me pull up what we're going to be looking at tonight here. Do my screen share window. There it is. All right. So here is what we're talking about tonight. Starting with this video that I put up as of doing this show about a week and a half ago. I put up this video called Michael Behe is Definitely Lying about an article that he wrote in April of 2025 for Discovery Institute's blog, Evolution News. It was his first article for Evolution News in several years, which right off the bat was kind of noticeable. It had been, 2022, 2023 was his last article. So I, read it right away. And it was so flagrantly dishonest that I had to cover it. So I went through that article and pointed out some of Behe's most egregious lies. And folks that are here, welcome. No, this is not a premiere. I am live for a change. Hello, welcome. I am live. This is an irregular thing. We're doing an impromptu kind of Saturday night. I can't believe the Discovery Institute is still doing this thing, although I can totally believe it. So Michael B, he put up this article that I'll talk about, and I responded with this video because the article was full of egregious lies. Here are the three big ones that I focused on. So first was Behe's conflation of Darwinism with modern evolutionary theory, right? Second was his claim that biologists go mute. Those are his words. Darwin boosters go mute when asked to explain how new traits evolve. And then third, his claim that neo-darwinism, which for the record for everyone is from the 1940s approximately, persists among professional biologists today because we're intimidated by math and don't want to, challenge early population genetics, right? So those are like the three big lies from that Behe article. And when I say these are lies, I mean these were egregious falsehoods. And with his background in just practicing science and his background as an anti-evolution activist for the over 30 years, Behe knows better than any of this stuff. Okay, so that's kind of what I did. And then since then, and that was as of right now, that was a week and a half ago. So since then, Discovery Institute has had some thoughts. So they took note. And first, I want to say I'm very flattered by that, just by the way, that the premier intelligent design, we're totally not a front for Christian nationalism, we swear, think tank watches my videos and thinks I'm important enough to respond to. So thank you for that, Discovery Institute. I want to say that off the bat. I'm very flattered by this response, okay? So what we have here, we have two videos by Discovery Institute Center for Science and Culture fellow, Dr. Cornelius Hunter, that's him on the left in the thumbnails for the two videos, and then two accompanying articles hyping the videos by senior fellow David Klinghoffer, and I think he's also the editor of the Evolution News blog. Viewers, you will be shocked to learn that neither of these videos nor the accompanying articles address my actual claims surrounding the lies in Behe's original article. Instead, Dr. Hunter wants to focus on literal seconds-long excerpts, and I will show them to you, seconds-long excerpts of my response to Behe's lies rather than the substance of my claims regarding Behe's statements being egregious lies, right? So here's the article that we're talking about from April 25th, 2025. And based on those two articles so far, it sure looks like, or those two articles and the videos, it sure looks like they don't want to defend the claims that Behe makes here on their merits. Instead, they want to change the topic and dive down irrelevant rabbit holes. I'm not going to be goaded into doing that. That is like classic creationist tactics, like change the topic, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. What about this little thing, right? Focus on the minutia. We're not going to be goaded into doing that. We're going to keep the focus squarely where it belongs, which is on the fact that this article from April 25th, 2025 was full of egregious lies. And for those of you that have read this article and seen my video on this article, you know what I'm talking about, right? It's really, really bad. I'm only touching on it briefly here. Okay, so here is what Dr. Hunter did in his videos. He kind of, in each of his two videos, he kind of said, I'm going to focus on this thing. Here are the lies or the false claims that Dr. Dan made, right? So these are in his two videos so far. I say so far because this is apparently a series. We're going to see how long it goes, but we're two videos in at this point, and what the heck, I'll just respond to the two videos that are out there because it's fun. Why not? So in each of these two videos, they follow basically the same format. Dr. Hunter is going to pick one teeny little thing that I said in my video, which was 29 minutes long and change. And he's going to dive down that rabbit hole as far and as fast as he can so he doesn't have to talk about the lie Behe told that I'm responding to. I'm not exaggerating when I say the cumulative length of my comments that he's responding to across these two videos is less than a minute total out of a 29-minute video. He's lifting these two little pieces out. And rather than focus on the actual point I'm making, wants to talk about teeny little minutia. So I just want to point out before we get into anything further that this is an extremely typical creationist trick, and it isn't unique to creationists. This type of thing is straight out of the conspiracy theory playbook. Am I calling Dr. Hunter a conspiracy theorist? No. I can't say that based on these videos. This is the first time I've come across Dr. Cornelius Hunter. I didn't know who he was prior to seeing his first video about me last week, right? I don't know who this guy is, whatever, right? But I can point out the similarity in the tactics that he's employing to, for example, climate change deniers or anti-vaxxers or other flavors of conspiracy theorists, right? So in the first video, he goes on and on about how horizontal gene transfer isn't actually a mechanism for generating novelty. Because as you'll see, I rattled off the top of my head several mechanisms that generate novel traits in response to a line from Behe's article, right? I just mentioned horizontal gene transfer as one of the things on a list. So let me show you that clip, and then we will come back to what Dr. Hunter's talking about here. So let me take this down, take that down, and we will add this. I teach evolutionary biology every year. I teach a 200-level evolutionary biology course, and we spend an entire day of class on how do new traits evolve. That is a topic for one of the days of class during the semester. We go through various mechanisms of how you can recruit proteins that do one job to have a different job. Processes like neo-functionalization and subfunctionalization, gene duplication, and horizontal gene transfer. These are not questions that are foreign to evolutionary biologists. We talk about this stuff all the time. Okay. That's the moment he's going to focus on right there, that little bit where I was like this and that and this and that. And one of those things was horizontal gene transfer. And he's going to make this whole thing out of just that one little line. Now, whether horizontal gene transfer is or isn't one such mechanism that can generate evolutionary novelty isn't relevant to the point I'm making. Now, for the record, totally is. I want to be clear about that. But that's irrelevant to the broader point here. So we're not going to take the bait and follow Dr. Hunter down that rabbit hole, right? That's what he wants me to do because that's a distraction from the real issue, which is Michael Behe's lies. In this specific case, about how evolutionary biologists don't want to talk about how novelty evolves. Like, that's straight up a lie. Michael Behe said Darwin boosters, his words, go mute when asked how novelty evolves, right? That claim is a lie. Did Dr. Hunter defend that claim? He didn't even try, right? He doesn't want to talk about that. He'll zoom in on this other thing. And then in his second video, he's going to hone in on bat wing evolution. So here's that clip. And this one's even shorter, this little bit that he wants to focus on. So let me show you this. Google, if you were to go on Google Scholar or something, right, and you were to look up bat wing evolution, how do wings evolve? How did whales evolve to be marine? You're going to find literal books answering those questions. So I said, if you want to know how we talk about new traits like bat wings, whale fins, whatever, you can search for it and find books on those topics. I used those examples specifically because those are examples that Behe named as, like, evolutionists don't want to talk about how wings and fins evolved. So that's the example that I named in my response to Behe. Now, that could have been any one of thousands of examples, right? It could have been flagella. Behe loves to talk about that. Blood clotting, immune cyst, right? Name anything. Whatever. Same basic structure. Did I look anything up before saying that specifically about wings? No. I just responded to what Behe said using the examples he gave. He's talking about tetrapod limbs, so I talked about tetrapod limbs, wings and fins, right? Are there books on tetrapod limb evolution? Are there books on tetrapod limb evolution? You bet there are. Here's one example. Fins into limbs, evolution, development, and transformation. Right? Now, what Dr. Hunter wants to do is go down the rabbit hole of bat wing evolution and argue about what we do and don't know about bat wings. Again, not the point. Almost his entire second video is about bat wing evolution. Not my point. I didn't say anything about the merits of what we do or don't know. My sole point is that people talk about it and address those questions. Right? We're not silent on the question of how these things evolve. We don't go mute when somebody asks the question. People are actively investigating these things and coming up with explanations and directly documenting how these structures evolve and are happy to write about it and talk about it. And that last bit, that we're happy to write about it and talk about it, is my point. Now, side point, unrelated to Behe's claim, we do, in fact, have a good grasp of how these traits evolve. Without looking it up, this was kind of funny, without looking it up, while watching Dr. Hunter's video, the second one, when he's talking about bat wings, I'm listening to it thinking, he's saying we don't know how this happened, but I bet it was this gene and it led to elongation, whatever, right? And I guessed it had something to do with this gene called SHH. It's a gene called sonic hedgehog, and it has to do with elongation away from the midline of the body. I said, I bet that's, part of this mechanism that's elongating the digits. And Hunter mentioned that in the video in which he's saying, we don't know anything about the mechanism. My friend, that is the mechanism, right? The paper is discussed in this article right here. So this is a popular level article, right? This is not a research paper, but it mentions two research papers from 2016. The paper is discussed in this article, and I invite anyone to Google this. You can see the title. Google this, look it up. Those papers talk specifically about the regulatory pathways that are different in bats compared to other mammals and other tetrapods. Those changes are due to evolution, mutations, right? Different nucleotide sequences resulting in different expression patterns of developmental genes. That's how evolution happens, right? You change the regulatory scheme for a gene that says elongate and you get longer digits. You disrupt the gene that says do apoptosis and you preserve the webbing in between the digits, right? These are things that are processes that are fairly well understood. Now, Dr. Hunter spends a whole lot of time in that video talking about fossils and bats appear suddenly. It's like very typical creationist stuff. If you're familiar with like how that kind of stuff works, it's very typical, very familiar forms to those arguments. But he breezes by the actual molecular mechanisms, which is the important part, despite literally naming one, right? Changes to SHH expression in his video. But here's the thing about this, and this is why this is a distraction, not the main thing. None of that matters. Because I bet if Dr. Hunter or Mr. Klinghoffer, anyone else at Discovery Institute is going to look at this, they're going to do what Behe did during the Dover trial. Everybody remember Kitzmiller v. Dover, 2005, when Behe was on the stand and cross-examined about the supposedly irreducible traits we've never even figured out how they could possibly evolve? At one point, the lawyer questioning him in his cross-examination stacked up a pile of books and papers on the stand in front of him because he had claimed, I think that was blood clotting, I think was the topic of that one. He claimed that blood clotting couldn't evolve and it's never been investigated, yada, yada. And the lawyer stacked up this pile of books and documents and said, look, here's all the stuff about how this trait evolved. And Michael Behe's response said they aren't relevant to the question he's asking. Now, I bet if I made someone here, sorry, I got this wrong, apparently. It was the vertebrate immune system. Thank you, Neslick. It was the vertebrate immune system that they stacked up the books on the stand. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I bet, here's a prediction. We'll see, because predictions are the gold standard of science, right, folks? I bet if I made like an hour-long video on batwing evolution, like I could collaborate with people who, really know their stuff on that, like maybe Jackson Wheat could help me out with it. We could do an hour-long video on batwing evolution, and all that would happen is what Michael Behe did on the stand in Dover. In fact, I bet they look up the book I just showed and this article right here, and I bet they do it with those. I bet they're going to look these up and say, well, Dr. Dan showed a book in an article and it actually didn't answer the question we're asking, which is another reason I'm not interested in chasing them down this rabbit hole. That's not the thing we're talking about, right? How precisely we've documented and figured out the history of batwing evolution. That's not the thing I'm talking about here. We're talking about Michael Behe's lies and Dr. Hunter and Mr. Klinghoffer's desire to talk about anything except those lies. Now, here's the cherry on top to this one. One of the lies I pointed out that I mentioned earlier from Behe's article was that he misrepresents what evolutionary theory actually is, conflating Darwinism and neo-Darwinism with the modern version of evolutionary theory in the 21st century, which is also different from the modern synthesis. Despite the name, the modern synthesis is also from the mid-20th century. That's not representative of our understanding right now. Most of it holds, to be clear, but there's a bunch of new stuff we've learned since then, right? So in the second article, this is, I believe this is in the second article from Mr. Klinghoffer here, he does the same thing that Behe does, right? He wrote, you can see it right here, at Evolution News, Behe said that bat wing evolution was unexplained by neo-Darwinian processes alone. Neo-Darwinian processes alone. Does anyone in evolutionary biology right now explain things using knowledge from the 1940s and the 1950s alone? Or do we incorporate what we have learned since then? This is like second nature to creationists of all flavors. Young Earth, old Earth, intelligent design. Creationists love to do this. They conflate all the different iterations of evolutionary theory and mush them all together to the point where they're unable or unwilling to write about modern evolutionary theory as though it's like a separate thing, a progression from the earlier versions, like the modern synthesis, for example. All right, so I just think it's funny that Mr. Klinghoffer did the same thing as Michael Behe. Now, I commented on Dr. Hunter's YouTube videos because, of course, I did. Why not? Now, he wrote on one of the comments that I made, or I commented in some thread, and he wrote like a long response to me. He actually said he tried to post it on my channel, but he couldn't. Dr. Hunter, if and when you see this, I don't know why you couldn't post it on my channel. You're not blocked or anything, and there was no, profanity or anything. So I don't know why it didn't show up, but it should have shown up. But anyway, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I want to point out this part. This is kind of his last paragraph, his takeaway, and I want to show my response here. So he said, and I quote, "I am more interested in the science and addressing your false claims about science than in the particulars of your response to Dr. Behe's blog article. So I do not intend to go further with this discussion of your accusations of Behe as liar, aside merely as context for your false scientific claims. If your liar claims were put under additional scrutiny, I am afraid they would not stand up very well, so I'm not sure you want to go there." Let me assure you, Dr. Hunter, I absolutely do want to go there. Because one thing I haven't seen in either video so far, nor in the accompanying articles, is an attempt to defend the substance of what Behe claimed, that Darwinism is modern evolutionary theory, that evolutionary biologists don't want to talk about the origin of novelty, and that evolutionary theory persists due to intellectual inertia among evolutionary biologists because we're afraid of math, which honestly is the funniest one out of all of these. Because, tell me you haven't studied evolutionary biology without telling me you haven't studied evolutionary biology, okay? So I responded with a comment of my own. I clarified the context of one of kind of the way he framed one of Behe's claims. He just got the context of just objectively wrong. It's another distraction. I'm not going to bother with it, but I finished with this. This is the end of my comment, responding to what he just said at the end of his comment. Quote, "I love to talk about the science of this stuff. I love to get into the weeds, and I'd be happy to do that once you acknowledge that Behe's claims are false. That's what my video was about. You want to jump to the underlying science? Great. Happy to do that once we agree on the actual point that I made, but I'm not moving on from that until we do." Okay, so that's my response to this series so far, Discovery Institute, and one of my kind of target audiences for this video is Discovery Institute. Dr. Hunter, Mr. Klinghoffer, here you go. You want to talk about the science? Great. Dr. Hunter, I would love to have you on so we could talk about the origins of evolutionary novelty or, whatever it is you want to talk about. That would be awesome. But I'm not going to let you change the topic. Engage with the substance of what Behe actually wrote and what I said about it, and then we can talk about whatever science you say you want to talk about. But let me tell you, I'm not letting Behe off the hook for those, yes, they were lies. Behe was lying. Now, Dr. Hunter, if you're planning a part 3, consider actually defending what Behe wrote, since that was, the whole point of my video. Or you can keep trying to distract your viewers from Behe's dishonesty and hoping I chase you down irrelevant rabbit holes. My guess is that's what's going to happen, but hey, look, prove me wrong, right? I would love to be proven wrong on this. So that's where we're going to leave this, folks. That is where this little conversation stands. And I just want to say one more time that Dr. Hunter, I would love to talk to you. I've had Dr. Behe on my channel a couple of times. I've had a bunch of people on, and I really do like to go really deep into the weeds on the science of this stuff. But in terms of this specific conversation, my video was about some very specific, very clear lies that Dr. Behe conveyed in his article from April 25th, 2025. So we're going to talk about that first, and then I'd be happy to move on to the underlying science. But we're going to talk about those lies first. So folks, that is it for this one. Thank you all for joining me kind of off schedule here. We did get a super chat from Meat Permits Tad for $2. DI hiding lies. I don't believe it. I know it is a shocking development. Let me tell you, never would have suspected. So thank you all for being here. I hope you all have an excellent night. Stay safe, stay healthy. As always, don't get fooled, and I will see you next time at Creation Myths. Good night, everybody.